Top 5 Washington Quarter Dollars Worth Big Money. Welcome to Numismatic Vault Extra. Today, we're going to explore some of the most valuable top 5 Washington Quarter Dollar coins from the United States of America. United State. We'll take a close look at their current market values, well-known era coins, and the specific conditions that make them rare, including silver issues, unique finishes, and different color shades that have become major players in the coin collector and investor world. These rare treasures are not just pieces of history. They are also among the most valuable coins collectors are actively hunting today. So, if you're a coin enthusiast, an investor, or someone who appreciates the beauty and significance of American currency, this video is for you. Backhand index pointing right. Let's get started with the first coin. Magnifying, glass tilted left sparkles. The story of the 1990p Washington Quarter begins at a moment when America stood quietly between two worlds. The Cold War era was fading, technology was accelerating, and the country was preparing to step into a new millennium without fully realizing how much everything was about to change. In the middle of this transition, the Philadelphia Mint continued striking quarters bearing the familiar face of George Washington, sending them into circulation as ordinary money, unaware that time would later transform some of these coins into objects of fascination, mystery, and intense desire. By 1990, the Washington Quarter had already become one of the most recognized coins in American history. Generations had grown up with Washington's steady gaze in their pockets, and the design had become part of daily life. Yet the 1990p quarter carried something subtle and powerful within it, a sense of quiet survival. It was minted during a year when people still used coins constantly, long before digital payments softened their role. Every quarter passed through countless hands, and that alone made survival in pristine condition extraordinarily rare. The Philadelphia Mint, unlike other mints, left no visible mint mark on its coins. This absence gave the 1990p quarter a mysterious identity. It blended seamlessly into circulation, indistinguishable from countless others unless examined closely. That anonymity is part of its power. Coins without mint marks often hide in plain sight, ignored for decades, until suddenly one surfaces in exceptional condition or with a striking anomaly that captures the attention of collectors worldwide. Collectors speak about the 1990p quarter with a particular kind of respect because it represents endurance rather than spectacle. It is not flashy by design, but in its finest preserved state, it becomes stunning. When light glides across an untouched surface and reveals original mint luster still alive after decades, the coin feels almost unreal, like a fragment of the past that refused to fade. Those rare survivors feel less like coins and more like preserved moments in time. There is also a powerful mythology surrounding quarters from this era, especially those rumored or imagined to have been struck on unusual planchets or preserved under extraordinary circumstances. Whether real or imagined, these stories fuel the dream that one coin, overlooked for years, could suddenly become the key to a transformed life. That belief is not about fantasy alone. It is about hope, patience, and the idea that value sometimes hides quietly until the right moment arrives. The face of George Washington on the 1990p quarter adds emotional depth to the coin story. Washington symbolizes beginnings, leadership, and the courage to step into the unknown. His presence on a coin minted at the edge of a new global era feels intentional, almost poetic. Just as Washington guided a young nation into uncharted territory, the 1990p quarter stands at the threshold between the analog past and the digital future. The reverse of the coin, with its powerful eagle design, reinforces this sense of vigilance and strength. The eagle appears frozen mid-guard, wings spread, as if protecting not just the nation but the coin's own journey through time. Every pristine 1990p quarter that survives today has escaped decades of wear, vending machines, coin counters, drops onto concrete, and the countless ways circulation erodes beauty. Survival alone becomes a form of rarity. What makes this coin emotionally compelling is that most people once treated it as disposable. It bought coffee, newspapers, parking time, and snacks. No one stopped to admire it. No one imagined it would ever be studied, graded, or cherished. And yet, history has a way of reshaping importance. Coins once ignored can become treasured precisely because they endured when so many others did not. Collectors understand that value is born from condition, timing, and narrative. The 1990 P. Washington quarter carries all three. It comes from a period now viewed with nostalgia, exists in a sea of worn examples, and holds the powerful story of quiet survival. When a coin like this appears in remarkable condition, it commands attention far beyond its denomination, sometimes creating moments that feel almost unreal for the person who discovers it. There is a special thrill in realizing that wealth does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides in drawers, jars, envelopes, or old rolls forgotten in the back of a cabinet. The idea that a single 1990 P quarter could be part of such a discovery fuels the imagination. It is not greed that drives this fascination, but wonder. The wonder that something so small can carry so much history and possibility. The year 1990 itself adds another layer of meaning. It represents the last calm breath before the explosion of the internet age, before digital currency, before smartphones and instant transactions. Coins from this time belong to a world where physical money still mattered deeply. Holding a 1990 P quarter today is like holding a passport to a slower, more tactile America. Collectors who pursue this coin are not just chasing metal. They are chasing preservation. A high-grade 1990 P quarter proves that perfection can exist even in mass production. It is evidence that amidst millions of strikes, a few emerged untouched, protected by chance or care, waiting decades for recognition. That recognition is what transforms an overlooked object into something extraordinary. Stories continue to circulate of people discovering unusually well-preserved quarters from the early 1990s and realizing too late how special they were. That is why experienced collectors repeat the same advice quietly and urgently. Never rush to spend an old coin without looking at it closely. Value does not always sit on the surface. It reveals itself only to those who pause and pay attention. The 1990 P. Washington quarter ultimately represents possibility. It reminds us that history does not always announce itself in grand monuments. Sometimes history lives in small, round pieces of metal that travel silently through decades. When the right coin meets the right person at the right moment, the impact can feel life-changing. In the end, the 1990 P. Washington quarter stands as a symbol of hidden worth, patience, and time's quiet power. It teaches that fortune does not always come from something new or flashy, but sometimes from something old, overlooked, and waiting. And for those who hold a remarkable example, it can feel as though history itself has reached out and offered a rare second glance at destiny. Next coin. The story of the 1979 Washington quarter with no mint mark begins in an America quietly standing at the edge of change. The nation had already left behind the silver coinage era, yet the emotional memory of silver money still lived in people's minds. In 1979, the Philadelphia Mint continued striking quarters without a mint mark, sending them into circulation as ordinary currency, never imagining that decades later collectors would examine these coins with fascination, curiosity, and hope for hidden fortune. By this time, the Washington quarter had become more than just a coin. It was a symbol of continuity. Since its introduction in 1932, it had passed through wars, economic booms, recessions, and cultural revolutions. The 1979 no-mint mark quarter represents a quiet moment in that long journey, a year when America was learning to adapt to inflation, rising costs, and a rapidly changing world while still relying on the same familiar coin designs. The absence of a mint mark gives this quarter a unique identity. Coins from Philadelphia often go unnoticed because they blend seamlessly into circulation, carrying no letter to distinguish them. This anonymity is precisely what makes them intriguing. A 1979 quarter without a mint mark could sit in a drawer for decades, ignored and underestimated, while quietly holding potential value waiting for the right moment to be discovered. Though the coin itself is not made of silver, the imagination of collectors often links it to the lost silver age. That connection fuels stories, dreams, and speculation. People imagine rare transitional strikes, unusual planchets, or extraordinary preservation that could elevate a simple quarter into something astonishing. This belief keeps the search alive and gives the 1979 no-mint mark quarter an almost mythical presence in the coin market. George Washington's portrait on the obverse adds powerful historical gravity. His calm, firm expression represents leadership during uncertainty, strength during struggle, and vision during transition. Seeing his face on a coin minted in 1979 feels symbolic, as if the past was quietly guiding the future. The coin becomes not just currency, but a reminder that endurance and patience shape greatness. The reverse of the coin, with the proud eagle standing alert, reinforces that symbolism. The eagle appears ready, vigilant, and unwavering, mirroring a nation adjusting to new realities. Each 1979 quarter passed through countless hands: shopkeepers, drivers, children, workers, absorbing the energy of everyday American life. Most were worn down by use, but a few miraculously survived untouched, sealed away from damage and time. Those untouched examples are where the magic lives. A high-grade 1979 no-mint mark quarter, still shining with original luster, feels almost impossible. It defied vending machines, coin counters, pockets, and careless handling. Its survival alone makes it special. In the world of collectors, survival is often more important than age, and this coin proves that truth beautifully. Collectors know that value is not created overnight. It is built slowly through rarity, demand, and story. The 1979 quarter without a mint mark carries all three. It exists in massive numbers, yet pristine examples are scarce. It comes from a transitional era that collectors increasingly respect, and it carries a narrative of quiet endurance that grows stronger with every passing year. There is something deeply human about the fascination with this coin. People love the idea that something ordinary can secretly be extraordinary. A quarter that once bought a soda or made change at a gas station might now sit under magnification, studied for strike quality and surface perfection. That transformation from overlooked object to prized artifact gives the 1979 quarter emotional power. The late 1970s were years of adjustment, resilience, and learning for America. Energy crises, economic pressure, and social change shaped daily life. The 1979 quarter lived through those moments, traveling silently through a society learning to adapt. Holding one today feels like holding a fragment of that experience, a small but meaningful piece of history. Some collectors believe that coins like this have the power to change fortunes because they represent opportunity hidden in plain sight. The idea that a single coin could suddenly reveal itself as valuable taps into something timeless. The hope that luck and preparation might meet at the perfect moment. The 1979 no-mint mark quarter embodies that hope. What truly separates this coin from modern currency is its connection to a world before digital money. In 1979, coins mattered. They were handled, counted, saved, and exchanged daily. That physical connection between people and money gives the quarter emotional weight that modern electronic transactions can never replace. The fascination surrounding this coin continues to grow as collectors realize that the past is finite. No more 1979 quarters will ever be minted. Each year, more are lost, damaged, or forgotten, making surviving high-quality examples increasingly precious. Time itself becomes the greatest force shaping value. For anyone who finds a clean, sharp, well-preserved 1979 Washington quarter with no mint mark, the message is simple but powerful. Do not rush. Do not spend it carelessly. Take time to understand it. Coins like this reward patience, curiosity, and respect for history. In the end, the 1979 Washington quarter without a mint mark stands as a symbol of hidden potential. It teaches that value does not always shine loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly, shaped by time and circumstance. And for the right person, at the right moment, this humble quarter can feel like a key capable of unlocking a new chapter of fortune overnight. Next coin. The story of the 1993 P. Washington quarter begins in a quiet moment of American history, when the nation was standing at the edge of a new world without fully realizing it. The early 1990s carried a strange energy. Technology was awakening, old traditions were still alive, and everyday objects like coins still moved constantly from hand to hand. In that moment, the Philadelphia Mint struck millions of Washington quarters, each one appearing ordinary, each one destined for pockets, cash registers, and forgotten corners of daily life. Yet the absence of a mint mark on the 1993 P quarter gives it a mysterious identity. Coins from Philadelphia blend invisibly into circulation, carrying no obvious sign of origin. This anonymity allowed many of these quarters to pass unnoticed for decades, making the rare survivors, those preserved in exceptional condition, feel almost magical when discovered. What looks like common change can suddenly reveal itself as something far more powerful. The Washington quarter itself carries deep historical weight. George Washington's portrait is not just a face on metal. It is a symbol of beginnings, leadership, and resilience. When his image appears on a coin minted in 1993, it connects two eras, the founding of the nation and the dawn of the modern digital age. This bridge between centuries gives the coin a quiet strength that collectors feel the moment they hold it. Although the circulating quarters of 1993 were not meant to be silver, the mythology of silver never truly left the quarter's story. Collectors know that history is full of surprises, accidents, and anomalies. The dream that a coin from this era could be tied to silver, through special strikes, unusual planchets, or rare preservation, fuels excitement that never fades. Hope itself becomes part of the coin's value. What truly separates an ordinary 1993 P quarter from a legendary one is condition. Most quarters from this year lived hard lives. They rattled through machines, scraped against metal, fell onto pavement, and lost their original glow. That is why a quarter that still shines with untouched surfaces feels unreal, as if time simply skipped over it. Such a coin becomes a survivor, and survivors always attract attention. The early 1990s were a time when people still trusted physical money. Coins were used daily, and no one stopped to admire them. That neglect is what makes preserved examples so rare today. A pristine 1993 P quarter avoided millions of chances to be damaged. It avoided the chaos of circulation and waited patiently, sometimes for decades, to be recognized. That patience gives the coin an almost destiny-like presence. Collectors often say that the most powerful coins are not the oldest, but the ones that survived against all odds. The 1993 P quarter fits this idea perfectly. It is not ancient, yet its survival in high condition is extraordinary. This contrast creates fascination. The idea that something relatively modern can still be rare enough to inspire awe and intense competition. There is also emotional power in the year itself. 1993 was a moment of transition for America. The world was shrinking through technology, economies were shifting, and the future felt uncertain yet full of promise. A quarter minted during this time becomes a physical reminder of that transition. Holding it feels like holding a small piece of a world that was about to change forever. Stories circulate among collectors of unexpected discoveries. Coins found in old envelopes, inherited collections, or forgotten rolls that suddenly reveal incredible value. The 1993 P quarter belongs to this universe of possibility. It represents the idea that fortune does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly in a drawer until curiosity brings it back into the light. The eagle on the reverse of the Washington quarter adds another layer of meaning. Strong, watchful, and unmoving, it symbolizes protection and endurance. That eagle has watched the 1993 P quarter travel through time, guarding its story. When a coin like this survives untouched, the eagle feels less like a design and more like a promise kept. Collectors who chase this coin are not just chasing money. They are chasing the thrill of recognition. The moment when an overlooked object reveals its hidden power. That moment can be electrifying. It can change how someone sees coins forever. And sometimes it can change their financial reality as well. The belief that a single coin can change a fortune overnight is not just fantasy. It is rooted in history, discovery, and rarity. Coins have done it before. Ordinary pieces have risen to extraordinary status because someone took the time to look closely. The 1993 P Washington quarter carries that same potential energy. What makes this coin especially captivating is that it still hides in plain sight. It does not announce itself with silver shine or ancient dates. It looks familiar, harmless, and forgettable. That disguise is its greatest strength. It waits for someone patient enough to see beyond face value. For this reason, collectors often warn never to spend an older quarter without examining it. Once spent, a story is lost forever. Once overlooked, a fortune may disappear. The 1993 P quarter teaches a quiet lesson. Value is not always obvious, and wisdom often lies in hesitation rather than haste. In the end, the 1993 P Washington quarter stands as a symbol of hidden opportunity, historical connection, and the silent power of time. It reminds us that even in a world rushing forward, the smallest objects can carry enormous meaning. And for the person who discovers a truly exceptional example, this unassuming quarter may indeed hold the power to change everything overnight. Next coin. The story of the 1982 P Washington quarter begins during a moment of quiet tension in American history, when the country was facing economic uncertainty, rising inflation, and a changing sense of value. Coins minted in this period were not celebrated, not admired, and rarely saved. They were used, spent, and forgotten. And that is exactly why the 1982 P quarter carries such an unusual and powerful presence today, because it survived an era when almost nothing was preserved with care. By 1982, the Washington quarter had already lived a long and storied life in American pockets. First introduced during the Great Depression, the design had become a permanent symbol of national stability. George Washington's portrait, calm and resolute, appeared on the coin like a quiet promise that endurance was possible even in uncertain times. In 1982, that promise felt especially meaningful, as Americans navigated economic pressure and shifting priorities. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced quarters without a visible mint mark, released millions of these coins into circulation. The absence of a mint mark made the 1982 P quarter blend effortlessly into daily life. It looked like every other quarter, passed from hand to hand without ceremony. That invisibility is what gives it its hidden strength. Coins that go unnoticed often become the rarest survivors in high condition, simply because no one thought to protect them. Unlike earlier Washington quarters, the 1982 P was not struck in silver, yet it exists in the long shadow of America's silver coin legacy. The memory of silver still lingered in the public mind, and collectors today often view this era as the final stretch before modern coinage fully took over. The 1982 P quarter sits at that crossroads, modern in composition, yet deeply connected to the emotional weight of earlier silver generations. What makes this coin fascinating is not what it is made of, but what it represents. The early 1980s were a time when people stopped saving coins. Inflation made small change feel insignificant, and many families focused only on survival. Because of this, most 1982 P quarters were worn down quickly. Finding one today in exceptional condition feels almost unnatural, as if time briefly forgot to touch it. Collectors understand that rarity is not always about low mintage. It is about survival. A pristine 1982 P quarter tells a story of avoidance. It avoided vending machines, parking meters, coin counters, and decades of friction. It avoided scratches, dents, and dulling. That survival turns a simple object into a witness, and witnesses from overlooked years often become the most desirable. There is a quiet thrill when someone discovers a sharply struck 1982 P quarter with original luster still intact. Light dances across its surface, revealing details that most examples lost long ago. In that moment, the coin stops feeling ordinary. It feels intentional, preserved, and chosen. That emotional reaction is what fuels collecting. Not the metal, but the miracle of condition. The design itself carries immense historical gravity. Washington's profile connects directly to the nation's founding, reminding the holder that leadership, discipline, and patience are values that endure. The eagle on the reverse, wings spread wide, symbolizes vigilance during uncertain times. On a coin minted during economic anxiety, that symbolism becomes even more powerful. The early 1980s also marked a shift in how Americans related to money. Paper bills and credit systems began to dominate daily transactions. Coins became background noise. That neglect is exactly what gives the 1982 P quarter its modern mystique. It represents the last generation of everyday coins before attention moved elsewhere, making its finest survivors increasingly valuable to those who understand history. There are stories, quiet, believable stories, of people discovering beautiful 1982 P quarters in old drawers, inherited jars, or forgotten rolls. Not stories of instant wealth, but stories of realization. The realization that something small, once ignored, had grown meaningful simply because it endured. That realization can change how someone sees money, history, and even opportunity. Collectors often say that coins from overlooked years carry the most potential because they were never saved intentionally. The 1982 P quarter fits this truth perfectly. Its value is born not from hype, but from scarcity created by indifference. That kind of scarcity is powerful because it cannot be recreated. Once lost, it is gone forever. The idea that this coin could change a person's fortune is not about fantasy. It is about alignment. When rarity, condition, demand, and timing align, value emerges naturally. A high-grade 1982 P quarter becomes desirable not because it was meant to be special, but because it accidentally became rare. Accidental rarity is one of the strongest forces in the coin market. Holding such a coin today feels different. It feels heavier than its weight, older than its date, and more meaningful than its denomination. It becomes a reminder that history often hides in quiet places, waiting for someone patient enough to notice. The power of this quarter lies in its silence, not its shine. This is why collectors urge caution before spending older coins. Not every coin is valuable, but every coin deserves a moment of attention. The 1982 P Washington quarter teaches that lesson clearly. What once seemed ordinary can become extraordinary simply by surviving unchanged. In the end, the 1982 P Washington quarter stands as a symbol of overlooked strength. It represents endurance through economic struggle, quiet survival in a careless era, and the timeless connection between history and value. For the person who recognizes its story and preserves its beauty, it becomes more than a coin. It becomes proof that fortune does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it waits patiently in the palm of your hand.